Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrutyam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye. Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha. Hridayantasto hi abhadrani vidunoti shruhrisatam. नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवते उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Today we are reading Canto 4, Chapter 22, verses 52 and 53. Verse 52. गृहेषु वर्तमानोऽपि सा साम्राज्यश्रियान्वितः न सज्जतेन्द्रियार्थेषु निरहं मतिर् अर्कवत्. गृहेषु वर्तमानोऽपि सा साम्राज्यश्रियान्वितः न सज्जतेन्द्रियार्थेषु niraham matir arkavat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Maharaja Prudu, who was very opulent due to the prosperity of his entire empire, remained at home as a householder. Since he was never inclined to utilize his opulences for the gratification of his senses, he remained unattached, exactly like the sun, which is unaffected in all circumstances. The word Gruheshu is significant in this verse. Out of the four ashramas, the Brahmacharya, Gruhastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa, only Gruhastha or householder is allowed to associate with women. Therefore, the Gruhasthashrama is a kind of license for sense gratification given to the devotee. Prudu Maharaja was special in that although he was given license to remain a householder, and although he possessed immense opulence in his kingdom, he never engaged in sense gratification. This was a special sign that indicated him to be a pure devotee of the Lord. A pure devotee is never attracted by sense gratification and consequently is liberated. In material life, a person engages in sense gratification for his own personal satisfaction, but in the devotional service or devotional or liberated life, one aims to satisfy the senses of Lord. In this verse, Maharaj Prudu is likened to the sun, Arkavat. Sometimes the sun shines on stool, urine, and so many other polluted things. But since the sun is all powerful, it is never affected by the polluted things with which it associates. On the contrary, the sunshine sterilizes and purifies polluted and dirty places. Similarly, a devotee may engage in so many material activities, but because he has no desire for sense gratification, they never affect him. On the contrary, he dovetails all material activities for the service of the Lord. Since a pure devotee knows how to utilize everything for Lord's service, he is never affected by material activities. Instead, by his transcendental plans, he purifies such activities. This is described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Sarvopadi Vinirmuktam Tat Paratvena Nirmalam is aimed to become completely purified in the service of the Lord without being affected by material designations. Verse 53. एवं आध्यात्म योगेन कर्माणि अनुसमाचरन् पुत्रान् उत्पादयम् आशा पंचर्चिसि आत्मसम्मतम्. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Being situated in the liberated position of devotional service, Prudu Maharaja not only performed all fruitive activities but also begot five sons by his wife. All his sons were begotten according to his own desires. As a householder, Prithu Maharaj had 5 sons by his wife Archie, and all these sons were begotten um, as he desired them. They were not born whimsically or by accident. How one can beget children according to one's own desire is particularly unknown in the present age, Kali Yuga. In this regard, the secret of success depends on the parents' acceptance of various purificatory methods known as samskaras. The first samskara, the Garbhadhana samskara or child begetting samskara, is compulsory, especially for the higher caste, the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, sex life, which is not against religious principles in Krishna himself and according to the religious principles. When one wants to beget a child, he must perform Garbhadana Samskara before having sex. The mental state of the father and mother before sex will certainly affect the mentality of the child to be begotten. A child who is begotten out of lust may not turn out as parents desire. As stated in the Shastras, Yatha Yonir Yatha Bijam. Yatha Yoni indicates the mother and Yatha Bijam indicates the father. If the mental state of the parents is prepared before they have sex, the child which they will beget will certainly reflect their mental condition. It is therefore understood by the words Atma Sammatan. But both Prudhumaraja and Archie underwent the Garbhadana purificated process before begetting children. Thus, they begot all their sons according to their desires and purified mental states. Prudhumaraja did not beget his children out of his lust, nor he was attracted to his wife for sense gratificatory purposes. He begot the children as a gruhastha for the future administration of his government all over the world. End of the purport. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Sri. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Um, Thank you for for giving me this opportunity to purify myself. I seek all blessings from all the assembled Vaishnavas, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to purify myself. Please forgive me for any shortcomings. So we are in the chapter 22 of the Canto 4. In the in this chapter 22 is titled as Maharaja Prudu Maharaja meets the 4 Kumaras. So I think we already covered Prudu Maharaja's rule, reception of the 4 Kumaras, and inquiring from them, and how Sanat Kumara answers Prudu Maharaja's questions in detail, and Prudu Maharaja, praising the Kumaras. I think in the current verses from 49 to 63, it talks about Prudu Maharaja's glorious rule and qualities, and current section talks about how Prudu executes all his duties perfectly and thinking himself as the servant of the Lord. So especially in the verses 52 to 53, um, I think in the yesterday's verse, we heard that how Prudu Maharaja always thought himself the servant of the Lord, and and the Lord is the one who is the proprietor of everything. So he dedicated all his activities, fruits of all his activities unto the Lord. That is the mood in which Prudu Maharaj has ruled and lived his time. And in coming to the verse 52 and 53, 52 talks about you know how Prudu Maharaja, even being a householder, having opulence, um, but he never used his opulence for wrong reasons or material sense gratification. But he is unaffected by all his opulence, and it has been compared like a example of the sun. And in the coming to the verse 53, it talks about the progeny. How Prudu Maharaj beget his sons, not for the material desires, but he also followed the samskaras, and he got the children for the greater good. So So in the verse 52, and as you know, we heard like Pruth Maharaj was a great ruler. He was very opulent, and he's a gruhastha. There was a four kind of ashramas, four ashramas like a brahmacharya, gruhastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa. But Maharaj Prudu was a householder. He's a gruhastha, and even with all his opulence, even he can use all the opulence for different purposes, but he remain unattached with the opulences, and it's compared like he's like a sun which was unaffected by all circumstances. And coming to the different ashramas, right? Each ashrama has a um, different purpose. What brahmachari can do, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasi. And many times people say like on even if devotees in Krishna consciousness, people are going to Krishna conscious, people are scared because Krishna consciousness means one should be fully do a renounced life and they may not be leading the life normal way or leaving the family and all those stuff. It may happen depend upon the path chosen or what kind of life one can lead to. But Prabhupada emphasizes and that being a gruhastha as a householder also one can become a devotee. We don't need to drop everything for Krishna, but we can still continue and conduct our life in Krishna conscious way, and we can still serve the Lord and take care of the family and make a living and all. I think in yesterday topic by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is beautifully explaining how one can be a devotee and one can also um, balance or understand what is spiritual life and material life and how do we conduct the life so that we can be in this life, but we can also serve a progress in the spiritual path. And obviously, with the spiritual path, even material life also will be progressing, and one can be conducting is their life in this world as a Krishna conscious way or as a Vaishnava's way. So, being a Gruhastha ashrama is the only ashrama where one can get married or associate with the woman. Even though one can associate with the woman, but with our Vaishnava uh, sampradaya, the main thing is even though one can associate with a woman, but it's in a regulated way. So in one of the four principles, right, how do we conduct, be follow those four regulative principles, not eating meat, not intoxicated, and another thing is no, not having illicit sex, and also no gambling. So here, everything what we do in Krishna consciousness or what the our philosophy is, we have to do the things in a regulated way. And here it was tell like he was also Pradhu Maharaj was also given remain a householder, but although he possessed the immense opulences in his kingdom, he never engaged in the sense gratification. So this is the special sign, or it tells that how pure devotees, um, behave or their character, how they are never attracted by a sense gratification. And is a pure devotee, and Prabhupada calls him as Uttamadhikari, is someone who has attained high level of spiritual advancement and characterized by unwavering love and devotion to Krishna. And also they are free from material desires and devoid of envy. So, and also that means here, you know, freedom from material desire means they are not motivated by personal gain or sense gratification or material possession, but solely focused on serving Krishna. And they dedicate all their actions, thoughts, and words to Krishna service and seeing everything as an offering to them. And also they constantly thinking Krishna, chanting his name, engaging in activities that pleases the Krishna. So one of the example of pure devotion is we see gopis in Vrindavan who desire nothing but Krishna's happiness, even offer, these are often cited as examples of pure devotion. And here, Prudu Maharaja is another example which we are reading about or knowing about in this chapter for last few chapters as well. So in the and also how they do is they do tells all their material activities in the service of the Lord. And since because pure devotees know how to utilize everything in the Lord service, but I think now in the material world we see people are puffed up by material gains and their their financial opulence. They always want to spend, and especially here, everything is being marketed how you want to spend money on the material sense gratification, and people want to show what they have. There is no end for how one can spend money, and in that rat race, it all goes in the vain, and it's not going to get us anywhere. But here in the Maharaj example, is showing us by example, and it's a sun example is given in Bhagavad Gita also, how sun, you know, purifies everything, even though it is being associated with the dirty things, different things, but it never loses its purpose, and it only purifies. Similarly, you know, even the devotees can engage in many activities, but they have no desire for the sense gratification. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sarvopadi Vinurmuktam, Tat Pravartena Nirmalam. What this verse talks about is like, bhakti, devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the master of all senses. By doing this, when the spirit soul renders service unto Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designation, and other one is one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So I think this is the verse quoted by Srila Prabhupada in his purport. And the second verse talks about, you know, second one's talk about even though being situated in a liberated position of devotional service, Prudu Maharaj not only performed all the fruitive activities, but he also begot sons by his wife, and all his sons were begotten according to his own desires. So, and there are samskaras in called a purificatory methods, which are known as a samskara. So the samskaras were, prescribed in the shastras and in scriptures, and these are the rites, one has to follow to conduct the things in spiritual aspect. These are not only mere ceremonies or ritualistic things, but rather it's opportunities for the spiritual growth, and also there is a scriptural difference why one has to follow the samskaras. There is a lot of there are 16 samskaras. I think Garbhadana samskara is the one is talked about in the words. To prayer for a healthy child, and Pumsavana is for fetus production. So like that, there are 16 samskaras, and here in this purport, Prabhupada talked about how Prudu Maharaj has a child by following the samskara, not for the sense gratification, and also how status of mental state of father and mother, before they get a children, will certainly affect the mentality of the child to be begotten. So it's all like how in the current world everything about sense gratification, whereas it's opposite or forward a reflection of the spiritual life. So even for every activity or every samskara is as a purpose, from before begetting a child to unchaste is the last one. When one person dies, unchaste is the last samskara one has to be performed, or it has to be performed. So how do we conduct our life? How do we, what consciousness we have, and what is purpose of having a progeny, and how one uses not sense gratification for household life, just for the progeny in the regulated way. I think that's what is talked about. And here it says at the end, Pudumara did not get children out of his lust, but not nor he was attracted by his wife. Um, for sense gratification purpose, but he got a children as a Gruhastha for the future administration of his government and overall world. So coming to the end, to summarize the verses 52 and 53, um, 52 talks about how Pruthvi Maharaj, even having a lot of all the opulence, and he didn't use for sense gratification, he remained unattached, and he given the example of like sun. And in the 53 verse talk about being situated in a uh, liberated position of devotional service. Pruthvi Maharaj not only performed all fruitive activities, but he also got 5 children. Indeed, all these children were born according to his own desire through the samskara process. With that, I can conclude. Please forgive me for any shortcomings. Vancha kalpatarubhasya kripa sindhubhya